Yes, people, welcome back to Lee Judges TV. Albert's Talking Points is back. No better appropriate times to talk transfers than now. Not long to go, people. But before we get into this, let's smash the intro. There you have it, people. Banging intro into Lee Judges TV. Albert's Talking Points is back, people. Transfer time. Some people's favorite time of the year. As an Arsenal fan, little bit up for debate, to be quite honest. But people, do the obligatories. Obliterate the like button if you haven't already. People that's already watching, thank you. And also subscribe to Lee Judges TV. Let's get into it. So, people, we've got my brother from another mother at 1G Williams. How's it going, bro? Good to see you back.
No, listen, it's an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you for having me again. Absolutely loved the first time I was on, so was anticipating and looking forward to the invite. So yeah, no, very much grateful for you to invite me back on. But yeah, can't wait to get into it. I mean, transfers for me, yeah, you know, as much as they're not always the most exciting thing for an Arsenal fan, particularly in January, I can't help but get excited every time it comes around. So yeah, looking forward to the show.
Yeah, I think the anticipation more than any time for an Arsenal fan is obviously a bit more different this season because well we're in the position that we're in, and it's amazing, man. It really is. I'm quite shocked at how this season's gone so far. So let's delve into it, man. So yeah, we spoke on my channel when we did weekly surgery on my channel, and I said in terms of, I think we was about 60. We had about 15 days left, I think, and we hadn't signed anybody. And I'm going to be honest, I was concerned because I thought I don't want to lose my head, which I don't do anyway with coming to transfers, but because I'll leave the people to get on with it on social media, especially on the Twitter, especially on the Twitter front as well. But
meltdowns.
Yeah, I was concerned. I was like 7 out of 10 because I'm thinking. And I know what it was for Arsenal fans, right? Whether they want to admit it or not. When they saw January 2022 and that we didn't do anything when we was in the position to secure top 4 or to strengthen our position securing top 4, we didn't do anything. And I could see the twitchy fingers after the first couple of weeks of January to say, what's going on? And then it got exacerbated even more with Mudryk going to Chelsea. But yeah, what's your thoughts? What's your realistic expectations before the start of the window? And what I mean by that in terms of context is, how many did you think we would realistically get in, and what positions did you want them to come in?
You know what it is with Arsenal. There's always, it's never an easy question to answer because there's always what you think the club's going to do in comparison to what the club is going to actually do. And a lot of the time, the two do not marry. You know, they don't mirror one another. So, I mean, I completely agree and echo with what you said. I think, you know, leading up to the January market, I think we were all excited, but I think we were all suffering from somewhat of a trauma from last January because, you know, we were in a fantastic position last January. And when I say fantastic position, I mean, most of us would have taken a top 6 finish. But I think given the fact that we were third, we were playing some really good football, but we felt we were short in some areas. And we thought, yeah, this is the perfect opportunity. The window's open. Let's get a couple of bodies in and let's shore up that top 4 position. We didn't do it. And in the end, we missed out on top 4. So, some will say that was a failure in terms of the board. Some will say, well, in hindsight, we finished higher up the table than we thought we would, and you know, not securing certain targets in January meant that in the summer we could secure, you know, targets that were available. I mean, I'm kind of split, to be honest. In terms of this window, I knew what we needed. I think almost every single, you know, rational Arsenal fan out there has some kind of concept or idea of what we need. I think we were light up front in terms of, you know, the front 3 positions, merely because of either inexperience or injury or players just not, you know, quite ready. So for me, I wanted a winger. or at least a centre forward, somebody to come in, particularly with the fact that, you know, ESR and Gabriel Jesus have been out and continue to be out, or ESR's on his way back. We haven't addressed the centre mid. We didn't address it in January. And amazingly or crazily, we didn't even address it in summer. So, I mean, the centre mid position has been an issue for a couple of windows now. So, for me, a centre mid had to be on the menu for this January. And ideally, I wanted to get cover at left centre back, because for a lot of people, it's not been a priority. But for me, having
for me, it was,
every single game. I think he started all games bar 3 in all competitions. I mean, for me, I plan on us, you know, going the distance in the league. I plan on us going quite far, if not winning the Europa League. And I would also like a really good FA Cup run. In order to do that, I don't think you can rely on the same 11 players. And I think left centre back is an area, probably across the back 4 is the one area where I think we don't have sufficient cover for Gabriel or sufficient competition. So my wish list was 2 to 3 players, a winger, a centre mid, and a defender. What I expected the club to do, or predicted the club to do, I was completely, I don't have a clue. I didn't have a clue, in all honesty, because, you know, I knew what the club needs, or I have my opinion of what the club needs or what the squad needs, but I had a very similar opinion last January, and yet the club were reluctant, and they didn't make any incomings. They didn't make any purchases. So I was very much aware of what we needed, in my opinion. But in terms of expectations, put it this way, I kind of prepared myself for, if we got anybody, it'd be a bonus. If we didn't, as much as I would be disappointed and I would have been vocal about it, I kind of prepared myself for that reality.
No, well said. Like, right. So, kind of the second part of the question, just sort of take it back a little bit, is what were your thoughts as a fan halfway through when we hadn't done any business?
I was worried. I was worried, but what I try to do is I try to keep a lid on it. You know, and particularly, obviously, we're both, you know, active on social media. We do content. You know, we've seen sometimes, you know, the repercussions of people tweeting when they're emotionally charged. So I tend not to try. I tend to avoid overreacting. But I mean, behind the scenes, like, you know what I mean? I was worried. Particularly, I think what made that so much more for Arsenal fans in particular was obviously the Mudryk deal collapse. And him signing for Chelsea. Let's face it, I'm going to be honest, I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted. And it was because at that point, it looked almost certain that we were going to get what looks to be a very promising, talented player with a very high ceiling. You know, he's not played many professional games. It was a big fee, but ultimately, you know, we all know he's a very talented lad, despite him going to Chelsea. So I think when that happened, all of a sudden we were back at square one, weren't we? You know, we were halfway through the window, that deal collapsed, and there was nothing, or it seemed as though there was nothing on the horizon in terms of incomings. And it you know, I think what a lot of Arsenal fans felt at that point was like, we've wasted half a window trying to seal the signature of this player for him to just then go and, you know, sign for one of our arch rivals. So I completely got it. I didn't take to Twitter. I didn't take to the group chats to express how I really felt. But I did observe and I did watch, you know, the meltdown. And I mean, it was epic. But yeah, you know, to summarize, halfway through the window, I was very concerned. And again, for me, at that point, it just reinforced me measuring my expectations. I thought, okay, the Mudryk deal looks certain. Once that fell through, I honestly felt, and that's the one thing I did say in a couple of group chats on Twitter, I did say, at this point, I'm not sure. And I think it's very unlikely that we will do any business. But what do I know? 2 signings later, eh?
No, you're right. Listen, I went on, obviously, Tom Canton, good man, went on his channel, and I said I was concerned, man. I think he was the same. He said, like, I'm quite concerned in terms of that. Nobody's coming, and the Mudryk deal, to me, I was never really comfortable with it. Not because I didn't want him, but I just felt the length of time it was taking. I thought, I don't think this is gonna pan out very, very well. He clearly wanted to come to Arsenal, so I did feel from a little bit because I just thought when he was unveiled at Chelsea, I thinking, yeah, you basically got sold without no say whatsoever, man. That's what it came down to, and Chelsea were prepared to pay the money that it was. But you're right. I think the fact he went to Chelsea and the fact that Arsenal fans saw it is you're going for one player. It's taken so long, and we haven't got him, and he's obviously gone to Chelsea. Some fans were losing it. They was on the Edu this, Edu that. I was like, oh my god, wow. But yeah, touching on sort of incomings, of course. So Arsenal, I think what I said this at the time when we signed Fabio Vieira, nobody saw that coming. So it proves to me that as clubs go, as obviously we're Arsenal fans, you can get deals done very, very quickly. And it did because he bought in obviously Leandro Trossard. I've got to be honest, my first thought was I was very pleased with the signing. But I thought, let me take a step back and see, again, sections of our fan base's reaction to us signing players, because people in the chat and people watching this now on YouTube should be fully well aware some Arsenal fans' his thoughts when he bought Ben White. And he came from the same club, by the way. So I was pleased personally. I've always banged on about G, and I've said it time and time again. I've not really got into massive debates with people because I just can't be bothered. I also need to start buying within the league. There was a stat flying around. You might have seen it or heard of it, or people in the chat. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the 3 years Arteta's been here, in terms of Premier League players based, he's bought 8. That's as many as the last 11 years.
Says it all.
And I think that's no coincidence why we're doing so well. And I think that cannot be ignored. Arsenal fans got too seduced with, you know, the elite signings, and we were never in a position as a football club to bring these guys in. You can talk about stature and history to your blue in the face. But I was pleased with Trossard. Listen, 28, which seemed to be a bit of a bone of contention in terms of Arsenal fans, which was madness to me. I think he's got as many goals as last season. I think he's one off. He's got 7 Premier League goals. He got 8 last season. Hat-trick at Anfield earlier this season, £21 million, £6 million add-ons. G, what was your immediate thoughts for yourself, and what the reaction in terms of Trossard from our fan base?
Like I said, I think the fan base was on a real low in terms of the transfers. You know, we can't argue with what's going on the pitch, because what's going on the pitch is phenomenally beautiful to watch. And I honestly didn't think it was going to come anytime soon. So we can't really complain about that. But I think obviously we're all anxious about the window. I think the collapse of the Mudryk deal, it was low. I remember sitting here watching it almost unfold minute by minute, and it wasn't pretty to watch. You know, him eventually obviously joining Chelsea. But what I then wanted to see is I wanted to see my club act.
Yes.
You know, and react to that situation. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see, you know, okay, we've lost out on what looks to be a major target, but we've got to have alternatives. There's got to be a plan B. There's, you know, Mudryk is not the only gifted winger in world football, you know, so it kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were links, and there have been links to Trossard, you know, with Arsenal. He's been linked with all the top kind of 6 teams in the Premier League for a while, but nothing major concrete. So I think, I can't remember who exactly broke the story, but I know Fabrizio brought out an exclusive, and it was like, like Arsenal are basically in advanced negotiations to sign Trossard. And my natural instinct, like the way I reacted initially, was just, I was over the moon. Like, I was literally over the moon. My only thought, again, because of trauma of this transfer market, was let's just get it done, because I can't go through another collapse deal, you know, in the 11th hour. So my thought was just, let's get it done. But in terms of being, you know, signing him as a player, like, he's an exceptionally gifted player. And, you know, 28, I mean, Jesus, when I saw the reactions online,
I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
And I thought to myself, I better go to the doctors then and check, like, if my ticker's gonna even last the rest of the day. Because
I was very surprised by the reaction. I was.
Bro, the way the fan base was reacting to him being 28, I was absolutely gobsmacked, like literally. And it was so brilliant that, you know, a couple of people did, you know, some due diligence and some research and brought out a list of Arsenal players, potentially Arsenal legends that were signed, you know, in their late 20s that came to the club. Santi Cazorla being one of them, signed at the age of 27, 28, absolute fan favorite. Some would say club legend. So, you know, the reaction to the age was ridiculous. And I think it was more ridiculous because, remember, we have the youngest team in the Premier League.
Exactly.
The youngest team in the Premier League. We can't, like, don't get me wrong, I love the policy of buying youth, buying young, Hairland projects and stuff. At the same time, I don't want to see a team of 21 and 22-year-olds. You know, if you look at our team, yes, we've got a very young side, but if you look at the spine of the team, you know, if you look at the characters like Partey and Xhaka, Jesus and Zinchenko, these guys are mid-20s to late 20s, early 30s. So they are, you know, essentially a little bit older, and you need that balance. So the age was not an issue for me. I thought the reaction was ridiculous. And I think this is a player I've seen absolutely, you know, smash Liverpool to bits at Anfield this season. You know, go there, and the guy's right-footed, but he scored an all-left hat trick at Anfield, one of the hardest grounds to go to. He bagged against Chelsea, bagged against City, and if you look at his stats, now I'm not for criticizing our players, and by no means am I saying I'm not criticizing Martinelli when I say this, but I mean, if we are putting Martinelli on a pedestal and saying, you know, he is of this quality and he is this good, when you look at Trossard, his stats last season were better.
Yeah.
And his stats were in fewer games. If you look at his stats this season, you know, he scored and assisted the same amount as Martinelli in fewer games. And he's playing in a far less, as far as I'm concerned, forget systems and tactics. Brighton are a far less gifted side than Arsenal in terms of personnel. So he's producing similar numbers to one of our best, if not our best winger, but yet we're turning our nose up to him as a potential signing. I found the whole thing ridiculous. I was very vocal in my tweets about it, saying it was a brilliant piece of business. I said it in group chats. It was popular for some people. It wasn't. I just think when you look at Trossard, you're looking at, like you've said a million times, you're looking at not an old player. You're looking at an experienced player. You're looking at a really proven player. You're looking at a versatile player, a player that can play across the front three. He can even deputize in a number 8 or number 10 position. This deal, given our position in the January market of the players who were available and the position we find ourselves at the top of the league with the second half of this season, the Trossard deal was an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, again, I watched Tom Canton's show because he did a phone-in show about the Trossard signing. I just think I like to take a back seat and listen to some of the Arsenal fans talking, because you got to bear in mind as well. We are top of the league. We've got a front three between them in the Premier League with Ødegaard. No, Ødegaard, not front three, but you know what I mean. In terms of attacking prowess, Ødegaard, Saka, and Martinelli, for 34 goal contributions, and we're only halfway through.
Yep.
And you add Trossard to that. I mean, listen, like I said, I don't know. I get the Mudryk thing, but come on. And I think also as well, people brought up the point in terms of how he left Brighton, and I said, okay, I understand that. But does that mean if listen, for the ones that love Mikel Arteta, right, before this season, right, if he would have done his keyword, the due diligence to say, you know what's the situation? I'm sure he might have even had a conversation with Ben White because he played with him.
100%.
He would not have brought this guy to Arsenal when this guy's bombed out the likes of Aubameyang and Guendouzi for, you know, let's say inverted commas, attitude problems or not buying into the way he plays. He would not have bought it. He would not have sanctioned it if it was that deep. Yes, it may not come across very, very well, but listen, I'm glad we got him. And like I said, I was quite surprised. Well, nothing surprised me with Arsenal fans, but I was quite surprised they picked that as a talking point in terms of his age. He's 28, in the peak of his career. He's had 116 appearances at Brighton, I think it was. He's been in this league. We need to start changing our mentality and embracing players that already played in the Premier League, and that will make our team better. I'm sure no one's complaining about Jesus and the signing of Ben White and Zinchenko.
Exactly. And you know what it is as well? It's like what people, I think sometimes, and this is the thing I've said about footballers and the industry as a whole. I've said it many a times, you know, it's almost like everything is massively heightened because of the media and the way things are reported. You know, the thing, what's happened with Trossard at Brighton is he has simply had a disagreement with his manager.
Yeah, like most people.
That is simply what's happened. This is not a player that has a history of being disruptive. This is not a player, you know, that is renowned for being a disruptive influence in the dressing room. It's a player that has had a falling out with his manager. Now, I'm telling you now, I'm 38. I've had plenty of falling outs. That doesn't make me unprofessional.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me unprofessional. It's a clash of personality. It's a clash of characters. It happens. It happens every day in the workplace. But in football, it's like everything is heightened and blown completely out of proportion.
Yeah,
and then what you get is you get these lazy narratives. The 28-year-old thing was an absolute ridiculous lazy narrative. It was just a way of people that either don't like the player or are jealous that we signed the player to use an excuse or to use something to try and put a down on a transfer. Because 28, as a professional, he's in the peak of his powers. The same thing with this whole issue with the Brighton manager.
Yeah, Roberto De Zerbi, yeah.
You've got Arteta, who has literally transformed the dressing room. Do you think he, like you said, he's really going to go and go out there and deliberately purchase a player that's going to come in and undo all his hard work over the last 18 months, 2 years? And then you also have to remember, not only does the likes of Ben White know him and has worked with him, our assistant coach actually managed him or coached him previously at I think it was a Dutch club called Genk.
Genk, is it? The Belgian, yeah.
Well, he would have come with, you know, if there was any reservations, you know, with regards his character or being potential disruptive influence, you know, it would never have happened. So come on, they're just lazy now.
And the thing is, he had something different, Trossard. He's like with Martinelli, I think obviously it's done by instructions and tactics for the likes of Saka and Martinelli to stay wide and keep the width. But I think with Trossard, he's a bit different in the sense that he's able to come more inside. So again, create more space on the overlaps. And I think, I thought he had a good little cameo when he came on, actually. Trossard, he didn't do anything too fancy, but just adjusted to the pace of the game. And listen, he's actually, I think he's an Arsenal type player. Technically, he's very, very good.
Yes. So, I said it when I saw the match. After the match, I said to somebody, I said, you know, looking at Trossard in the red and white of Arsenal and playing in that 10 minutes, you know, that's an Arsenal player if you've ever seen one. You know, just the way he moves with the ball, the way how direct he is, the way he glides past players. It was just, you know, Arsenal fans were like twerking all over Twitter, you know, when Mudryk came on and did his cameo for Chelsea. I saw that. It was so funny because those same fans, I know they were watching the game, obviously against United, but there was a radio silence. And I knew that was an acceptance that they liked what they saw. He came on, and I mean, I think it was like the 88th minute or the 90th minute. The guy's dancing around about 4 or 5 Manchester United players on the edge of his own box. He even had a say in the winning goal. He was the one that drove through, broke the lines, and passed it out left to, I can't remember who it was.
Zinchenko.
Yeah. So straight away he's had an impact. And I think what he will do is he will provide, you know, he's not, I'm telling you now, people are looking at this signing and saying to a lot of Arsenal fans that he is going to be basically cover for Martinelli. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to start over Martinelli. But what I'm saying to you is, do not be surprised if Trossard is in that team a lot more than you think, because he is a very, very good player. He's a very good player. And over the last 2 games or so, Martinelli hasn't somewhat been himself. And I don't know if that is fatigue. It could be. It could be the fact that Gabriel Jesus is out of the side. And I know he tends to link up a lot more with Jesus on the left. Eddie seems to float out to the right more, whereas Jesus tended to float out to the left. So I think he's somewhat missing his Brazilian, you know, compatriot. But whatever the reason is, it's a good problem to have, because instead of bringing on the likes of Kieran Tierney, like we did against Newcastle or some of the other teams to replace retiring Gabby. We can now bring on Trossard. Imagine chasing Martinelli for 70 minutes and then having to deal with Trossard. Come on.
It's true. It's about giving them problems. Yeah. Quickly about Martinelli before we move on to on other side. And I think you made a good point in terms of Jesus not being there. And I also think if he's got, for example, because obviously Zinchenko plays that inverted role and comes centrally and threads the ball through the eye of a needle. With Kieran Tierney, he gives you more width in terms of going on the outside. So I think that's partly as well with Martinelli. So Martinelli will come back on form, trust him, man. Don't worry about that, man. But great points. And people, big up to the people, 95 people watching. Smash the like button if you haven't already and subscribe to Lee Judges TV. And our Twitter handles are in our boxes for myself and 1G Williams people. It's a multitask and triple task. But yeah, we pull out another signing, G. So Jakob Kiwior, I believe that's how you say his name.
That's how you say it.
It's interesting because we touched on it at the start of the show. In terms of myself, in terms of incomings, I thought Arsenal, I expected to see minimum 2 coming. I didn't know what positions they would happen. I did vocally say that Arsenal's not going to get a striker. Said that. It's not going to happen because I think at the time, probably the thought process was they're bringing Mudryk. If Eddie's not going to start games, then probably Martinelli goes down the middle. That's my kind of way of thinking of where it's going to go. But Arsenal were never going to try and get in a number 9 as such as you want to put inverted commas. But one aspect I thought, and I did want them to strengthen, and we actually gone and done it. We're bringing in Kiwior. Is we bought a left-sided centre back, which I think because Gabriel would not have played as many games this season if we had adequate cover to cover that position. That's bloody obvious to me. But I just think, for me, it's a key area that Arsenal strengthened upon. Yes, we've got a very good defensive unit in different aspects of right back, centre back, and left back, but we did need a left-sided centre back. We've got that. Now, we don't know too much about him. I think he made 4 appearances in the World Cup, 8 caps for Poland, 43 appearances for, is it Spezia? Yeah. And obviously, you know what? Actually, thank God for YouTube, actually. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because if not for the advance of technology, how would us as football fans know how these players play?
Honestly.
Unless you live in Italy or, you're an Andy Brassel or a South American crossball like Tim Vickery, you're not going to know.
Yeah.
So thank God for that. And I did see some of the clips I saw of him. The boy can pass, man.
Yeah.
Seriously. Him and Ben White can have a competition to who can hit the best diagonal pass.
I tell you that.
Because he can pass the ball, man. And I was listening to big up Simu, man, who's on Sky Sports earlier, man, this morning doing the transfer stuff, and he covers a lot of Italian football. So he was saying there were some clubs that kept an eye on him and were interested. I think like So it just goes to show. Listen, you might not be fighting at the top end of Serie A or in the top 6 or listen. Then he's done well probably in the struggling side, but from what I've seen, G, I don't know what you've seen. Or he's 22, I believe, is it? So 20 million. That's
22.
It's a good bit of business, man. So and also 6'2", so physically imposed a good height. I heard he can play a CDM role. He can play, and he can play left back and left side. So if that is the case, then that's a great bit of business. So what have you made of the signing, and what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like this one again, it came out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Like they gave us Trossard, and then they just went, yeah, okay, here's another. And I mean, it was literally like, I think it was a Polish journalist at first that broke the news. And I think people were kind of saying to themselves, is this real? Is this not? Like, what's going on? Like, should we? And then obviously it was picked up very quickly by the likes of, Orny and Fabrizio and so forth. And then within an hour or so, here we go. We had a second player, albeit he was only announced, I think it was yesterday or so.
Yes.
But yeah, like, I mean, I've got to be honest, I'd never heard of him. I mean, I'd seen the name in terms of like, you see names floating around, whether it's you're watching football or reading stuff, or even on your Twitter timeline, it comes up, it pops up. At the same time, I didn't know very much about the player at all. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I did. But I spent that day, obviously, like most Arsenal fans, I think, watching YouTube, but also reading. I think apart from just watching a player on YouTube, I often find it quite interesting to read a lot of articles in terms of what journalists, are saying about the player since he signed, but also before he'd actually signed, because that's when, a lot of the time information that comes out after is just kind of like they're trying to hype up the deal. Sometimes it's really to look into what was being said before he's kind of made a major move. And I mean, he came from the Anderlecht Academy. And at the end of the day, obviously, like all academies, you were going to have players that don't go on to be absolute superstars. The Anderlecht Academy is absolutely famous for making absolute ballers. So, I mean, he comes from good stock in terms of like his early years, in professional football. I mean, if you look at his stats for Spezia, his club, I mean, they're not the best Italian side. So there's no surprise. But I mean, amongst the players in his squad, he has the highest stats for the most interceptions, the most blocks. But most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but like you said, most interestingly enough, he has the highest passing accuracy in the entire squad.
That's not a surprise.
And that's good. That's quality. And you can already see why. If you've got a tool, what does this sound like? It sounds like a tall, strong centre back that's good on the ball. It sounds like Saliba. It sounds like Ben White. It sounds like somewhat, maybe not so much Gabriel.
A little bit,
as good as the other two. But I mean, you can see what Arteta is looking for in a centre back, and on paper, he fits the bill. Like you said, he loves passing the ball. But if you listen to his interview, he said it himself. He loves being on the ball. He's comfortable on the ball, and he likes to build attacks from the back. And that's one of the reasons why he picked the team he picked to join. He actually said that in his interview. He wants to play in a team that sets up like that plays football like that. So that's crucial. It seems on paper like it's going to be a match made in heaven. The versatility is there. I mean, again, that's another Arteta, textbook signing. He plays left centre back. He can play left back. He can play CDM. The season before this season, he played, I think, an entire season at CDM. So again, he's comfortable on the ball. He's got the defensive prowess, but then he's got the technical ability to actually create stuff when he's on the ball, which is phenomenal to have. But I think what's really important about that ability to play left back, if you look at the way we play and the way Zinchenko plays, how he does inverted into midfield, having a centre back that is comfortable to cover that space on the left is crucial. And if he can play as a natural left back, then you've basically got two players in one there, right there. So, I mean, on paper, I'm excited. Obviously, this is on paper. This is all theory. We've got to see what he plays like, as an Arsenal player first.
And to adjust to the league as well.
Exactly. So it's going to take time. I mean, there was one stat I did see, which one of the articles wrote and said that I think in the league this season he has been dribbled past. I think it was a number of 18 times in the league, and there is some work to be done maybe on his kind of one-on-one situations. But he's 22. He's not 32. And in terms of a centre back, he's very young. He's an absolute baby when it comes to the profession of centre backs and the profession of goalkeepers. So he'll have time to learn, and he'll have time to kind of progress his game. But on the whole, I mean, look, we've got a 22-year-old, 6'2", pretty quick. Because I saw he's got a bit of pace about him. Physically looks commanding, good on the ball, and he's learned how to defend in Italy. I mean,
better to attack.
It's not a bad, it's not a bad school to learn your craft. So I think the Premier League is very different to Serie A, and we've got to obviously, let him come in, let him settle, like you said, give him time. But I think the beauty is we've got Gabriel, so he can come in and he can settle in and he can, play in the Europa League, for example, or play in some of the FA Cup ties, or come on at, a bit latter stages of games when we kind of wrap things up. There isn't a pressure for him to come in at January and just hit the ground running because we've got Gabriel. So I think potentially it's a really good bit of business. And I, for one, are absolutely thrilled that we signed a left-sided centre-back because it was on my wish list.
Absolutely.
I never saw it happening. The fact that they've done it, for me, brilliant signing.
No, I will say it because the thing people said, no, we've got defensive cover. I said, no. Listen, Gabriel's played too many games this season. That would not have had to have been the case if we'd already had somebody, like I said, that was adequate at the club that can play in that position. But yeah, listen, I'm excited to see him play. It's going to take time for him to adjust. Yes, I get it. He played for a team in Italy where they were at the bottom end of the table, but the fact that other clubs were interested in terms of, you're talking about Juve and a few other European clubs were interested in getting him, and we secured that signature. That's very, very promising, man. So and I think he actually turns 23 the day we play City in the league on the 15th of February. So listen, he could even feature, to be honest, people. But yeah, G, big up for that, man. So yeah, all the last points of the stream. But so yeah, we've got, January 24th today. So we have a week, right? There's a few names that have been thrown about. Ivan Fresneda, Amadou Onana. Yeah, so how many more incomings would you like to see? And do you think we will get any more
in? In terms of incomings, I want to see at least one more.
Yeah.
And for me, that has to be a centre midfielder. It has to be. I'm very happy with Trossard. I'm very happy with Kiwior. I think there are two key areas in the squad that we need cover. We needed competition, and I'm over the moon. But we still haven't addressed the centre mid position.
No, that's the problem. Yeah.
And I mean, in the January market, I mean, there's a lot of speculation that we are, very much interested with the front runners, and potentially Declan Rice has somewhat given his word, has been reported today, to sign in for Arsenal in the summer. And I mean, I won't dwell on that too much. I mean, if that happens in the summer, that would be fantastic. But we're in the here and now right now. And waiting to sign a centre mid till the summer for me it's not good enough. This is an area in the squad that's needed to be addressed for some time. It wasn't addressed last January. It wasn't addressed in the summer, albeit other key areas were. But I mean, this window for me is crucial. We've seen the impact that the impact and the influence that Partey has in that low number 6 role. It's absolutely immense. And it's so immense that anytime the guy plays a one wrong pass, the whole entire fan base gets on his back, because that's how crucial he is. Because every single, people see it as, like, sometimes people see it as, it's hate. And I do understand where that comes from, but I think it just emphasizes just how important we feel Partey is, because we can't afford him to have a bad game. Because when he ticks, we tick. That's the kind of impact he has. He is part of the spine of that side, given his age, given his experience, and given his presence in that middle. So the last 2 seasons, or definitely last season, the back end of last season when we were chasing top 4, he got injured along with KT, and it absolutely derailed our season. Now, don't get me wrong, I think collectively we're a better team now, 100%. And I'm not sure if he got injured, our season would derail to the extent it did. Nevertheless, I don't want to take that chance. So we need to sign a midfielder, in my opinion, that can ultimately provide competition for Partey in that number 6 role. So for me, that's the one position I want to see. And that's the position I believe, given the amount of rumors and noise that's coming out of the club, in terms of speculation, I honestly do think we're in the market for a centre mid. I mean, we've been linked with Casado from Brighton, who's an exceptional player.
Chelsea been linked to him as well.
Yeah. We've been Onana, who, in my opinion, I would take Onana.
Yeah, I would.
I think he's a very, very talented. He's very raw, but he's a very talented young player. Yeah. He can come in. He can play 8 comfortably. For me, he's not the finished article in terms of the number 6 position, but he can definitely play there. And what better player to learn your craft under than Thomas Partey? So I think Onana is a signing. The only issue I have with Onana is I think Everton price him at 50 million. I'm not sure Arsenal will go anywhere near that in terms of valuation. What is interesting, though, which has been reported again today, is that he's not turned up for training. He's not reported back for training. So, I mean, well, that's him and Anthony Gordon as well, the one that looks like he's on his way to
Newcastle. Yeah.
So I think, there's lots of rumors to say we're interested. I think I would happily take Onana in this window, and then happily pick up Declan Rice in the summer. For me, that's the only signing I can see. I mean, the right back situation, for me, it's not a priority. We've got Tommy, and we've got Ben White. And I think more so now that Kiwior has come, we don't even really need to use Tommy in the left centre back position because he can play there. So we've got 2 right backs already. And we still got Cedric on our books, who looks like he's going to Fulham. So with Fresneda, don't get me wrong, he looks absolutely class. He's a very talented young player who plays for Valladolid.
Yeah.
What he does, I told you, I don't know if you've seen much of him, but he looks like an absolute copycat clone
of Zinchenko. Yeah, they said that. Yeah, he's a right-sided version of Zinchenko.
So, I mean, if we can get that deal done, I want it done. By all accounts, if you read into the reports, even if we sign him, he's likely that he's going to go back on loan.
Yeah,
to his club. So for me, I want to get him, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be a key signing for this run-in to the end of the season. So, but nevertheless, he's a gifted player, and if we can take the opportunity to get him, then we should get him. But we are in competition with the likes of Dortmund, who, in terms of like a young player going to a club, they're going to be up there in terms of destinations. But so yeah, for me, in summary, I think we'll get one more player that will impact this season, and I think that will be a centre mid. I think the club would be, really, really playing a dangerous game if they rely on the fact Partey is going to remain fit between now and the end of the season as much as we want it, because you've got to remember El Nene is out injured at the moment.
Yeah,
no update on his injury situation. And let's face it, as much as we all like Sambi's no number 6. So yeah, centre mid as in a DM is what we should get and what I think we will do between now and Tuesday.
No, I will say, talking of injuries, I saw with West Ham, Jesus Christ, I said Danny Ings is out for several weeks. I said, wow. And they've got Scamacca's out as well.
Yeah, Scamacca's out as well.
Wow. Yeah. But yeah, no, big ups like that. Yeah, with Ivan Fresneda, I mean, it depends who you believe in terms of sources, because they're saying that Arsenal are the favourites, but then it's obviously out of us and Dortmund. He wouldn't cost an absolute bomb. They're talking around the £30 million mark, and as you mentioned, 13 people just before you panic is not 3-0, 1-3.
Well, listen, the Arsenal accountants will be atting you, about
they will. That's what... But yeah, listen, if they can make that deal happen, and he's going to obviously go on a loan back to Valladolid, then so be it. He's only 18, by the way, so there's a lot more. There's a lot of rawness and a lot more development to come with him. But yeah, as people have said, he's a carbon copy of Zinchenko, but on the right hand side, and that's the way Arteta obviously wants the team to set up and play, but particularly coming from the wide defensive areas, coming into midfield and creating more overloads and more space and great balls through to the middle of the park and the rest of it. But Onana, I'm not sure how much Everton could really command for him, to be honest. If he went, I mean, I saw a figure banded around about 25 million.
But so didn't they buy him for more than that?
I think they did. I'm not sure how much they bought him for.
I think they bought him for like mid to late 20s in terms of, I think it was about 27 million they bought him for. Yeah. And I've also heard that his club, I can't remember, it's escaped me, the club they signed.
Is it Lille or Nantes? I can't, one of the two.
I think it might have been Lille. But I heard that they have a percentage sell-on clause as well. So I think that's going to impact what Everton want, because obviously they're going to lose a percentage to his previous club. But I don't know, man. It's a bit weird, like, given the situation that Everton are in, that they're even entertaining the fact of potentially, losing Onana and Anthony Gordon. I think that's insane, because I think, like, they've just lost their manager. They're absolute rock bottom of the Premier League. And I mean, if you've watched any Everton games, I've watched a couple here and there. They're absolutely awful. But of all the bad players or bad play they have, I mean, Anthony Gordon stands out as a bright spark. Onana has stood out for me in a couple of games as a bright spark, and then you've got almost like Damari Gray is another one. The rest of them look absolutely awful. So I'm not sure why they're even entertaining the thought of selling Onana, to be honest.
Yes, we'll watch this space, people. But no, with Fresneda and I'll keep an eye on that one. I think if Arsenal can get that done, if they're talking about that price range, I think Arsenal can stretch the purse a little bit to nab him, but he's still quite young, like I said. And I will watch his space. But yeah, in terms of century, this is an interesting one, man. Because if you look at, for example, with the Tielemans thing, if there's any legs with that, I think Arsenal will still be prepared to wait with him, not necessarily centrally in general, but in terms of him, then I think they'd be prepared to wait. With Declan Rice, I mean, like I said, I was surprised them links even came out in the first place because I just saw him going to Chelsea. His best mate's there, Mason Mount. It's been spoken about before. But if there's legs in it in terms of what's to come to Arsenal, I'm not going to complain personally. I'll leave the Arsenal accountants to argue about the fee because he's English. But again, I think that'd be a summer one. I said Arsenal, as I said at the start of the stream, Arsenal would bring in 2 before the start of obviously the start of January. They've already got 2, and there's still 7 days left. And again, because the problem is if they don't strengthen centrally, what you're kind of telling the Arsenal fans really is that you've got enough, but you haven't. And on top of that, you haven't got enough, and the quality is not good enough. Yes, Elneny, he can do a job. He's been there. He's been at Arsenal a number of years. I understand that. But in terms of Lokonga, I've not seen enough personally for me that you can rely on him. And I think that lies with the manager. You're not picking him for the match game. So I think it would be negligent not to get anybody in centrally personally. But there's still time, there's still 7 days. I think 2 of the midfield players that I talked about for Arsenal, I personally think there'd be summer signings in terms of possibly Tielemans and Declan Rice. Or Declan Rice. But it'd be interesting to see. Like I said, they pulled the deals out with Trossard and Kiwior.
This is it.
Come in, man. Come in.
This is it. I mean, like, you know, there's always noise, isn't there? You know, there was all the Mudryk links, the Mudryk noise, and then the collapse of the deal, and then boom, we signed Trossard. And then, you know, 48, 72 hours later, boom, we have a new left centre back. So, you know, it's difficult. I mean, there's a lot of noise at the moment in terms of midfielders. Like I said, we've been linked with Casado, we've been linked with Onana today, McKennie, the American lad, you know, at Juventus.
Yeah, not too sure about him.
Even Musa, you know, we've been linked with a return, you know, Musa to the club. You know, he used to be at the club as a youth player. So we're being linked with a lot of centre mids. That doesn't mean that we're going to sign any of them, because chances are we'll just pull one out of nowhere that no one has heard of, or one that we've not been linked with. So I think I'm confident we will get a centre mid. Like, I mean, even Camavinga, like, we know that's not going to happen.
No.
It's another player we've been linked with, and I think maybe sometimes Arsenal Football Club leak like wrong information to just send the media merchants wild, in a frenzy, and then we just go and sign somebody else. Because before all the Kiwior talk, we were being heavily linked with Ndika.
Exactly.
You know, the centre back that's out of contract in the summer. And then all of a sudden, you know, that's put that rumor completely to bed. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think, touching on what you said with regards like Elneny and Sambi, I mean, you know, for me, there is it would be smart business to pick up a first team centre mid this window, and then pick up another one in the summer, because I think, my opinion, and this is in my humble opinion, you know, Elneny right now currently facts is, you know, he's injured. Aside from that, his contract expires at the end of the summer, so I can't envision him getting a contract extension. We signed him on a 1-year extension last summer. Anyway, I can't see us repeating that, and he's already taken his coaching badges. Anyway, so I can see him, you know, moving on out of the club in terms of a playing capacity. And for me, Sambi, ideally in this window, I'd probably loan him. And the reason why I say that is because, one, he's not a natural 6. I've seen him play there. He doesn't look comfortable in that position. But when I look at him potentially playing in the number 8 role, he's not going to displace Xhaka in that number 8 role. And we have players like the likes of Vieira. Trossard can play number 8, albeit I think he's going to play on the wing. Smith Rowe's to come back, who can play in that left centre mid role. Odegaard can even deputise there if we're taking him out of the kind of number 10 role. So I feel like we've got enough cover in that number 8. I don't see Sambi starting over any of those players I've mentioned in the number 8 role. And I don't see him as a 6. So me personally, I would like us to, loan him out. If not this January, then in the summer. But I see room for us to buy a number 6 this window and then buy another midfielder in the summer, because ultimately we've got room for it. I don't think we're going to be able to secure the targets we want or all of the targets we want in January, because it is a more difficult market than the summer, because ultimately I think, if the links are true with Rice, we would move for him. But West Ham are not going to let him go in January, given their situation and so forth. In terms of the midfield situation, like you said, I think it would be absolutely mad for us to not sign a centre mid, because it's the one area now, with the arrival of Trossard and with the arrival of Kiwior, for me, it's the one area that is really staring at us in terms of like, we need reinforcements and we need another person, another body in there. Other areas of the squad, like the right back situation, even potentially the right wing situation, can be addressed in the summer, because you've got Trossard there, you got ESR coming back, you got Jesus coming back, so we have players that can kind of give Saka a break if he wants to. Marquinhos, he's another one we haven't touched upon. I think he needs a loan. He needs a loan out of the club in January. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
That's it. I thought let me leave it. It can't be muted yourself for the live stream. It's not going to work, people. It's not going to convey. So apologies. And obviously, I'm going to try and put this on the audio a bit later for people to listen to. But yeah, big up to people in the chat. Thank you, man, for your fantastic interaction and drops in the comments. There's 108 of you watching now. So if you haven't hit the like button already, absolutely obliterate it, people, for Lee Judges TV, and subscribe to the channel. People, get your virtual waves and goodbyes in the chat box, because we are wrapping up. Like I said, there's a week to go. Arsenal, I think Arteta deep down knows, you know what, I need a little bit more extra help in the central areas, because it's paramount. More important than key, is paramount. Arsenal need to address in that area, even if it's a temporary measure, and then do your business and due diligence in the summer. We know the names that have been bandied about. If there's any more out there, even better, and then just unveil it. But before Chelsea try and buy everybody else on the market, but it's crazy. Honestly, it is crazy.
Oh,
I think they probably get either Fresneda or Rice. Yeah,
it's madness.
But G, thank you for coming on, bro. Tell the people where they can find you, man.
Oh, listen, absolute pleasure, man. Always a pleasure, man, being on the stream with you, bro. Anytime you need me, man, you know me. G Talks is what I used to go by, so I love talking, man. So, but yeah, definitely. Any of you watching, if you want to obviously interact with me, you can find my Twitter handles on the screen, which is @1GWilliams. That's the social media platform where I do a lot of my interacting, a lot of my tweeting, group chats and stuff like that. So by all means, give me a follow and interact with me. I'm also part of a great team, part of our own YouTube channel called The Armory TV. Fast growing, great content, previews, review shows, transfer shows, you name it, we do it. So if you want to see more of me in my Jamaica top, then not only follow me on Twitter, but also hit me up and hit up the rest of the team on The Armory TV on YouTube. But yeah, once again, thank you obviously to Lee Judges, because this is his platform.
Yes,
thank you so much, Albert, for inviting me on again.
No worries, man. Big shout out to Bruce in the chat from Jamaica. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man. Going international. I have to shout that out, because that's big, man. That's big. Yeah, of course. But yes, of course, people, your host, should I say, not house, your host, Albert JTV. Got my own channel, of course. And what I've done, people, the link in the description for G Williams is there. So obviously follow his Twitter handle and then subscribe to The Armory TV. And my channel handle is also in the link in the description as well. So people, come and subscribe, man. Come and subscribe. But yes, I'll be doing my own stuff, of course. Life Stories episode is coming out very soon. So you need to pencil in the date. But yeah, it's all good here, man. But people, like I said, obliterate the like button. That is Albert's talking points for Lee Judges TV, over and out for another episode. Come on, you Gunners, and good evening, people. Take care.